Yo, welcome to the Stokastic.com No House Advantage Strategy Show, and we got a good one today. Coming off yesterday, 5 games, kind of a weird one. Today, well, we had 9 games. Now we got 8 games because, well, the Detroit Pistons couldn't get out of Dallas, and we all know how that works. But anyway, 7 o'clock lock at No House Advantage. Make sure to be aware of that. Sometimes they push it back a half hour if there's an island game to start the slate off. Not today. 3 games kicking off or tipping off at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to break down all the best props here, utilizing the No House Advantage tools that are entirely free over at Stokastic. Seriously, take advantage of them if you haven't done so yet. It's a legitimate cheat code here, and it's going to save you a shit ton of time. But anyway, I'm Dave Loughran at Laffy_D on Twitter, joined by Greg Ehrenberg. Oh, man, at Greg Ehrenberg, G. Ehrenberg DFS. And it's been a while, man. What's going on?
Yeah, once every 2 or 3 months, we end up on the schedule together, and that is one of those days today. And by the way, also, if people don't know how to find the No House Advantage projections we have over on the site, you go to Stokastic.com, click on the NBA tab, scroll down all the way at the bottom. It's going to say free NBA DFS data. And then on the right side of that menu, it's going to say No House Advantage. And there you're going to find all the different projections that we're going to be talking about over the course of this show and the different overs and unders that look good over at NHA. And there's a handful of them.
There's a lot today. No, like 99.5 percenters.
Yeah.
But there's some good ones, some real good ones out there. We're going to break it down. No need to go game by game here. For like, you can do that, I suppose. But it's not really necessary, Greg, when you're talking about something like this. You're not really talking. It's just a different format. For those of you new to No House Advantage, very simple. The ones you like the most go at the top. They get the most points. The ones you're least confident go at the bottom. You're just building a lineup with no salary constraints or anything like that. You're taking props that are static. They do not move. You're taking the over or you're taking the under. That's what our tool's here to do. So I say we just hit our favorite props today over the next 25, 26 minutes.
Yeah, I think that makes a whole lot of sense. And like you said, also, the reason we don't really need to go game by game or anything like that is the props that they have in their contest, they're very inefficient, a bunch of them. And that's why you had said that, like, oh, we don't have any props that have a 99% chance to win. Yeah, we got ones that have 85% chance to win, 84%. And that's really what I think we should be focusing on, as opposed to being like, hey, what could we pull out of, like a Celtics Nets game that probably doesn't have anything for value, when some of these individual players are just way mispriced.
Do you know how tough it would be to try and find all of the good props if you didn't have the tool to sort by? With the way that this is designed, like where you have to select the player and then see all their props, it'd be really difficult.
Yeah, it would be no different than just going into a sports book and being like, what are all of the different lines there are, and trying to, it's easy. It's very convenient to have them all in one page that we have here.
Let's have you kick this one off. So we've got a few right now with under odds north of 80%. Matter of fact, we have like 9 or 10 of them. There's also one, there's an over that I like quite a bit. It's at 76%. I'll get there after you go. We'll hand this off to you first. It's at 76%, but it's one I still really, really like today. Where do you want to start at?
Yeah, so there are some numbers that look, so basically all of the highest projected under odds for us are coming from the Atlanta Hawks. The reason being, in my estimation, is Trae Young missed last game, and it looks like NHA set all of these props assuming that Trae Young was going to be out again. So with that being the case, you just got a bunch of players, but these lines are so high that we're projecting them really well towards the unders. Now, also a note here, you can only play one NHA prop from each individual player.
Yeah.
So I'm about to talk about Bogdan Bogdanovic. There's a couple of props here that project really well for him. We've got under 4.5 assists projects really well. Under points plus rebounds plus assists also projects really well. My preference in these is to take the points plus rebounds plus assists. So, and by the way, this is the same for the overs or the unders, and we have them comparably projected really well. The reason being is I just think you have more wiggle room, right? Because you're getting more of a sample size when there's more stats being involved. And Bogdan Bogdanovic, his over-under for points plus rebounds plus assists is 27.5. And like I said before, that to me looks like a line that was assuming Trae Young was not going to play. With Trae Young playing, we haven't projected well under that. We have him for 19.8 points plus rebounds plus assists. The under expected to win 85% of the time. So I look at these Atlanta Hawks, and that's the player that stands out the most. Just a misprice from a guy who would have benefited if Trae Young was out, but it doesn't matter because Trae Young's playing.
Yeah, I love that. Our tools love that. Would you consider this a 10-pointer?
Yeah, just looking through all the ones, I think it's a pretty strong consideration for a 10-pointer. We've also got John Collins under assist, looks really good, and other Hawks players. But in terms of what I would consider to be the safest, I think this is a really strong consideration for a 10-point or 9, 8, 7, like any of those. I think it's a pretty high point prop.
I really like the over on Alperen Şengün points today. I mean, I really do. And I think you can make the argument that assists is really solid as well. That's only at 66% odds on the over. Still not bad, but he hasn't finished with fewer than 6 assists since Kevin Porter went down and only played 10 minutes back on the 11th. Like 10, 7, 6, 6, 6, 7, 7, 10, 7. He's averaging 11 and a half potential assists per game over that stretch. Now, you have Jalen Green, who's not playing today. Porter's still out, so they're definitely missing some of that firepower, which is why I think I'd rather go to points. We have him projected at over 21 points. His line is at 15 and a half. You're still talking about somebody that is this is a fantastic young player that's going in a competitive, which it should be. We don't know, but if it's a competitive game, you're getting 35 minutes here. We saw him play 35 plus minutes in 5 straight before they lost by almost 20 to the Cavs last game in a tough, slow-paced matchup. He's been racking up points here, and you take Jalen Green off the floor, who's a 30+% usage guy, particularly with Kevin Porter off. I think there's a lot to like here with Şengün getting over 16 points, and our tools like it quite a bit as well.
Yeah, and I agree with that also. It's just, if you look at the numbers, and by the way, even if you just look at on-off court numbers, it looks really favorable for Şengün. But I almost think it does it a disservice to say that, oh, he's averaging 20 points per 36 minutes this year with Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green off the court, because he's a young player. Like he's gotten so much better as the season's gone on as well. We've seen some massive games out of Şengün as of late, and I think it's pretty reasonable to think Şengün in February is a considerably better player than Şengün in November or Şengün in October or anything like that. So even looking at the full sample size of his entire stats this year, I don't even think it does a justice for how good he's been as of late. So no Jalen Green, like you said, no Kevin Porter Jr. I think we should be riding Şengün.
What do you make of, and I want to pull it up here to see if we've got something on him. I'm not sure that we do. No, nothing on Eric Gordon. Was curious to see if we had any Aaron Gordon props there. That would have been, or Eric Gordon, sorry. That would have been interesting, just given they don't really have that many shooters. Is Şengün the only, do we have any other Houston ones? I think we do.
I think Jabari Smith.
Yeah, we have Jabari Smith. We have him at, they have him at 13.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1.5 made threes. I thought that our tools really liked the under on assists. Yeah. We have 84% to the under on that, under 2.5 assists here. What do you make of that?
I think that's a really aggressive projection we have, just looking at some of the numbers for Jabari Smith. And I know that he's not necessarily the highest assist guy in the world. He's actually only had one game with 3 or more assists since December 23rd. So yeah, I mean, the last month plus, he's only had one game where he's gone over that mark. But once again, we've got both Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. out, and 2.5 assists. It's still not a number that would be impossible to come over the top of. And if you do look at his numbers overall for the year, per 36 minutes, Jabari Smith actually is averaging 2.2 assists per 36 minutes with Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. off the court. So with that in mind, like I would, if I had to pick a side, I would definitely take the under. And I think it's worth considering as a low point prop. But I do think that the 84% win probability is pretty aggressive for such a low number and a guy who's benefiting from players being out.
Yeah, that's my concern too. Like only averaging 2.4 potential assists since Kevin Porter went down, but stumbling into 2 assists here against the Oklahoma City Thunder, that one scares me a little bit. And by the way, if you guys are just stumbling onto this show, wondering what No House Advantage is all about, of course, maybe you watch the Deeper Dive Live Before Lock strategy show and you haven't signed up at No House Advantage. Really the best thing about it, the link's in the description, and Mike can throw that into the comments as well. It's not just the fact that you're getting the $100 first match deposit bonus, which they upped from $50 a few weeks ago. It's the fact that you're taking a site that's giving legitimate, like giving money away in these contests. It's right now, it is, let's see where it's at as far as where it's filled. It's at 107 out of 1,200, 5K up top today, 9% filled. it's going to overlay. Like they're designed to overlay. They're a new site. They're trying to make an impact, and they're doing it right. But in order to get people over there, they said, let's give overlay out. You know, they have the against the house too, where you can 24x or 22x your entry fee if you get all your picks right. But in these pick'em contests, man, you're going to get overlay, and it's huge. Alex Baker, awesome himself. He just took down, what was it, like 15,000 or 14,000 the other day, and said, like, the overlay is massive there. So he's playing on it and taking advantage of something that we all should be at No House Advantage. So links in the description and chat if you're not yet there. All right, so let's keep this one rolling. I want to kind of build a lineup out here. I'm perfectly fine throwing Bogdanovic at points, rebounds, and assists on the under. We also have the optimal lineups tool that gives you optimal lineups. We have that. We have Şengün. Where do you want to go next?
And one other thing I wanted to mention about the versus the house props, those move. They're not something that stays stationary like the pick'em projections. It's pretty useful to check those out and kind of cross-reference them against the pick'em projection. So for instance, we were talking about Şengün before. And Şengün, one of your favorite props and one that I like as well, we were talking about getting him for over, 4.5 assists. Is something that looks a little low as a possibility. For reference on how off that is, the versus the house props, which end up updating based on news and how people are betting them stuff, that's 6.5. So that's something you guys could also use as a tool. Just check those out and kind of cross-reference them versus the pick'em projections.
For sure. Where are you going next?
Yeah, so let's look at another over that projects really well for us, and that's Mikal Bridges, who currently has an assist prop of 2.5. And we saw some news today, Devin Booker getting close to returning for the Phoenix Suns, but not going to be out there today. I think he tweeted that he's rounding third base, meaning almost there. And it looks like sometime early next week, late this week, we're going to see Devin Booker back in the lineup for the Suns. But as long as he is out, we've seen Mikal Bridges play a much bigger role for Phoenix, and he's another guy who's improved a lot. So he used to be more of a 3-and-D type guy. One of the best perimeter defenders in the league, was a great catch and shoot player. But now we're also seeing more assists. So these recent assist numbers for Mikal Bridges, I think really highlight how good the over 2.5 assist prop is. These are his recent games. 6 assists, 4, 4, 3, 4, 4, 9, 7, 6, 4, 5, 3, 7, 4, 4. You have to go all the way back to December 30th. In the year 2023, he has not had a single game with less than 3 assists, and his prop is 2.5. It is really hard to not back that one as one of the really high point props, because he has gone over a month since he's missed this. So I think this is one to consider for the 10-point prop, for the 9-point prop. I like Bridges over assists.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit. And look, it makes sense, right? You have no Devin Booker. Of course, you still have Chris Paul. But as far as playmakers go, behind Chris Paul, who really is there? Cameron Payne's been out as well. Yeah. Who do you really have that's a reliably consistent playmaker behind Chris Paul on this team right now?
You don't have anybody. And that's also why they're playing just insane minutes to Mikal Bridges. And something that's great about him too is he seems able to just play these minutes night in and night out. So there was a game against Charlotte a week ago that was a blowout. Other than that game, if the game isn't a blowout, you're getting 40 plus minutes from Mikal Bridges. And that also really helps the counting stats. So Bridges looked great.
I want to stay in this game and I want to take an under here. All right. So it's not Bridges, but I'm going to go to Cameron Johnson on an under. So you say you like going the points, rebounds, and assists. I like the under points, rebounds, and assists on Cameron Johnson quite a bit. I know he had a couple big games recently from a scoring standpoint, but even the 24-point game, he was at 30 rebounds, points, rebounds, and assists. Like, sure, he got over, but that's still somewhat of an outlier game here. Now, I'm not saying that he can't have some decent performances, but you're still talking about a guy who is, okay, so let's see how many minutes he's played. 1,331 minutes since the start of last season without Devin Booker. I'm not including Payne and guys like Landry Shamet on that. It's unnecessary. Yeah. 8.5% assist rate. Rebound rate is sub 10%. So you're already looking at a guy who absolutely needs to rack up points in order to get over this number. 19% usage rate. Like, he needs to have, for sure, almost certainly, right? Unless it's a wild outlier game, Greg, he needs to have 20 plus real points to get there. And it's still very possible, even though he's playing elevated minutes over the last few games, it's still very possible, even with a 20-point game, Cameron Johnson does not reach 30 points, rebounds, and assists. That's a lot for him.
And I like Cameron Johnson. I've had some good DFS days where I've been overweight to him as of late, but he's very dependent on scoring, like you said, and knocking down threes and if he doesn't make just like an astronomically high percentage of his threes, he's not going to hit this prop, especially because his usage has been still fairly low as of late. He's just hit a really high percentage of threes. But listen to these last 3 games, 16.9% usage rate, 18.7, 18.2. Sure, he had a game where he goes 5 of 7 from 3, another one where he goes 6 of 7 from 3. But beyond that, that's not something you can predict. You can't expect somebody to hit 70 or 80% of their 3-pointers. And once you start to see that regress, you've got a guy who doesn't really put up rebounds or assists, and his scoring is very dependent on making up just a super high percentage of threes. So I do like the under last game for what it's worth. 4 points, 3 rebounds, 0 assists, and only played 26 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a spot. So so far, we have Bogdanovic under points, rebounds, and assists. We have Şengün over points. We have Mikal Bridges over assists, right? And then we have Cameron Johnson under points, rebounds, and assists. I think those are 4 great starting spots. I don't have a problem throwing any of those in the top spots for a night like tonight. Where else do we go? It's always going to begin to thin out, but I think we still have some great ones that are still on the board we haven't even touched on yet.
Yeah, like one of the ones here, and Sabonis has been a fantasy monster as of late. He's had a bunch of big games. He's been putting up triple doubles. He's actually had, 2 triple doubles in a row and something like, 5 triple doubles in his last 7 games. I've never seen a rebound prop like this before. Never. Like, this is just ridiculous stuff. His rebound prop at no house advantage is 16.5. Like, what is this number? And by the way, we have him projected for more rebounds than any other player on today's slate. We have him for 13.4 rebounds. The player that we have, let me see. I was going to check other guys, but I'd have to switch screens for that. But either way, we have Sabonis projected for the most rebounds on the entire slate.
Do you know what his rebound prop is on DraftKings right now?
14.5, 13.5,
12.5, juice to the over, but 12.5.
I mean, it's just 16.5 is it's such a ridiculous number. He had an 18 rebound game. Maybe this is what influences it. He did have an 18 rebound game against the Spurs a couple of weeks ago. But beyond that, I mean, that's the only game that he's had with over 15 rebounds since Christmas. It's just such an absurd rebound expectation. Like, if you see a 16.5 rebound prop for somebody, you want to be under that number just every single time.
No question. He's done that. He's done it 7 times this season. 7 times this season. That's it.
It's a crazy number.
Which is not a lot, given how there's no juice on these either. So it's 7 times all season long, and the amount of games that he's played. Yeah, no, it's a great 47 games he's played. So he's hit that in less than 15% of games. Yeah, you have to hammer the under there, no matter how good the matchup is. And it is a good matchup. There's no doubt about it. It is a good matchup, but still, I'm with you there. All right, let's add that one to the mix.
Yeah.
I want your thoughts on this next one, okay? Damian Lillard, we have him projected at 30 points, 30.2 points. The line is 23.5. Now, I understand this isn't the best matchup for Damian Lillard. That's understandable. But Damian Lillard going head-to-head against Ja Morant tonight, I mean, kind of a marquee matchup at the point guard position. His usage is absolutely through the roof. And, it's funny, too. Don't just look at Damian Lillard's field goal attempts per game. Don't just look at the threes. This dude is getting to the line at an astronomical clip. When you get a guy like this is why Joel Embiid, you can always feel relatively confident that he can crush that point total, even if he's not shooting well. It gives you massive protection with good free throw shooters who competently get to the line. On the season, he's averaging almost 9 free throws per game. That's way higher than we've seen. His free throw attempts per game recently are insane. Not to mention, this is a guy that can rack up double-digit three-point attempts every single night, 20-plus actual attempts. Like, Damian Lillard can get north of 24 points and shoot 25% from the field.
Yeah, and I mean, look at some of the recent games too, and just
it's insane.
Because I think that there's also something that when you're trying to project out players, sometimes there can be a human element of if you're a star player of a team and the team's gone through a little bit of turmoil, not just in terms of players being hurt, but also just losing games and where the Blazers, because the Blazers a month ago were like fourth in the Western Conference. Now, they're in the play-in picture. And you've seen Damian Lillard be a little agitated at press conferences and whatnot. And then what happened? They've won 3 of their last 4 games. And how have they done it? Damian Lillard, last 4 games, 37 points, 60 points, 30 points, 42 points. The usage rate in those games, 34%, 42%, 37.1%, 36.4%. He's shooting a ton. Over the last month, he's only had 1 game where he has scored under 20, was it 23 and a half or 24 and a half? Either way, he's only
23 and a half.
Yeah, he's only had 1 game in the last month where he's at under 23 and a half points. Whereas he's had a handful of games with 40 plus points. He's actually had more games with 40 or more points than he's had with 25 or less points. So I think this is a pretty clear line too that just doesn't really make any sense. We want to be well above that number. And yeah, we've got Dame projected for a lot of points, but that should be the case. Over the last month, he's averaging 34 and a half points per game on a 33.7% usage rate.
This guy just, yeah. And he kind of has to at this rate, but yeah, you broke it down nicely. I just wanted to see what over his last 10 games, what his usage rate was. I'm assuming it is insane. Let's see. It is over his last 10 games. Yeah, 34%. It honestly feels higher than that, but it doesn't matter. I mean, you get to, oh, no, that's actually wrong. It is higher than that. Doesn't matter. I think we broke it down well enough to where I think we all have confidence. Yeah, 35%. That Lillard's in a good spot. So I'm building this lineup out now. I feel real good about it. Of course, things can always go wrong, injuries, foul trouble, whatever that may be. Throw me another one, Greg. We got about 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the Hawks, where before we're talking about how so many of these players are priced as if Trae Young is going to be out. And the player that's been hurt the most from a fantasy perspective with the Hawks this year has been Dejounte with Trae Young, Dejounte Murray playing together. Is Dejounte Murray? Trae Young is still getting his stats, getting his fantasy points. Dejounte Murray had a big game when Trae Young was out the other night, but there's been such a downtick in his overall fantasy production, counting stats while playing alongside Trae Young. So just these are the numbers this year when he's playing alongside Trae Young. So per 36 minutes, he scores 39 fantasy points. What really I want to highlight here is his assist numbers, because that's the prop I like here. Dejounte Murray has an over-under of 7.5 assists over at No House Advantage. When he plays alongside Trae Young this season, he puts up 5 assists per 36 minutes. So you would need him to have a 50%, more than a 50% increase in his normal assist rate alongside Trae Young in order to hit the over on this prop. It's just not going to happen all that often. So we have this winning right around the 80% of the time. I think that makes sense. We've got him projected for 5.8, given some of those numbers I was just looking at with Trae Young and Dejounte Murray playing together. I think the 5.8 assists projection we have might even be a little bit too high for Dejounte Murray. And we still have it winning right around 80% of the time. So under on Dejounte Murray, 7.5 assists. I think that's another good one that we should add to that card.
All right. That makes 7, I think. I think we're at 7. Maybe Mike can let us know how many we're at here. What are we at, Mike? That was 8? Well, no, Jabari Smith was just a conversation. So we have 7 because, yeah, Jabari Smith was just one that we were thinking was a little too bold for our taste.
Well, this is good. Right. We can show them how to replace a prop.
There you go. I'm going to hit another over here. And I'm kind of going to go with the hot hand players that have a lot of usage right now. Now, this player doesn't get to the line as much as Lillard does. He's certainly volatile, but he's also streaky as all hell, going up against the Golden State Warriors team that, sure, plays solid defensively, but also high total in this game. I think I'm going to go to Anthony Edwards over 21.5 points here. They still have a 118-point implied total. He's been purely dominant lately. Another guy that can get there on volume alone. This one, now granted, we're not at the 10-point plays anymore. Okay, we're getting down a little bit further. This is where you have to start being a little bit selective. But what an absolute tear he has been on lately. And, you see it just from the turnovers alone. Like, he's handling the ball so much. He's been so ball dominant lately. He's going to make mistakes, but he's also going to get up a ton of shots. Usage well over 30% recently. Give me Anthony Edwards playing huge minutes in a game where, sure, Minnesota dogs at home, but 21.5 points. And they're only 3-point dogs at home. I still think 21.5 points. We can easily clear that number today.
Yep. I think that definitely makes sense. And another one that's like, what is his prop at books? Like 25.5, 26.5 or something like that today?
It's gotta be, right?
It's
gotta be well north of. It is. All right. I got it right here. So his points prop, and I'm just using DraftKings as a reference, 28.5. Yeah,
it's a 7-point difference.
28.5. That's huge. And by the way, sure, it's minus 110 on the over, but the under is only minus 120. Like 28.5. When you're talking 7-point difference there, maybe this is. I'm not going to say it's a 10-pointer, but this might be. The only reason I don't want to put it at the top is because I think this is one of the more volatile ones, because Anthony Edwards can sometimes have those games where he just completely disappears. But with the way he's playing recently, I certainly don't mind this at all.
Yeah. And then I think we've covered so far a lot of the super high probability props. Like you said, now we're getting to some of the ones that there's value in, but it's not ones we put into a 10, a 9, or an 8-point play or anything like that. So one final one that I like here is Kyrie Irving under 6.5 rebounds. You just never see 6.5 rebound props for Kyrie. It's such a big number for him as a guard. The other thing too is this is a tough matchup for the Brooklyn Nets going up against the Boston Celtics, who they've got Robert Williams back now. This is a better rebounding team than they were earlier in the year. Just overall a better defensive team as well. The start of the year, the Celtics, as good as they were right around league average, slightly below league average in adjusted defensive efficiency. But now their adjusted defensive rating back to being top 5 in the NBA. I think the Nets are going to have a tough time with the Celtics tonight. So massive line here for Kyrie. You just never see the 6.5 rebound props on him. So I do like under 6.5 rebounds as a lower confidence play for Kyrie, but still clear value.
I like it. Now we have to hit on one more to close this out. Look at this timing, man. 10 up, 10 down, coming in right up against it. There's nothing that I'm in love with here at all. I will say, though, that our projections, and this is a good spot to use as a reference, they definitely like the under on John Collins' points, rebounds, and assists. You went to Bogdanovic earlier. John Collins, 28.5 is the line right now. He is playing considerable minutes, but he hasn't rebounded particularly well. He's not like an elite rebounder. He doesn't dish out a ton of assists. Another guy where, like, sure, if he has a dominant game on the boards or just lights it up scoring, sure. But it's not exactly like he's facing the worst offense or worst defensive team in the league. I would probably, just based on what we have from our projections, we have 80% odds on the under here. This is probably one spot where I would just trust the projections and see how it plays out. What's his points, rebounds, and assists at? Let's see. It's a 21.5 on DraftKings. So no, this is objectively a very good play now that I think about it.
Yeah. And by the way, the number on DraftKings, like you said, 21, our projection is 21.8. So we're pretty much in line with, DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM on their line. And it's just NHA. The reason it's so off, like we were saying before, these lines were all made under the assumption Trae Young wasn't going to play today. And Trae Young's playing. These lines remain the same, and they're just off for the Hawks.
That's it, man. Anything else? Anything else we haven't hit? I think we got to most of the good stuff here. Quick 30 minutes. Pretty comprehensive, though.
Yeah, we got to the best props, and we built out a lineup for you guys. So now everybody who's watching, all of you out there, you could all play the same lineup. And
remember, if you stuck around and somehow aren't on No House Advantage yet, links in the description. It's in chat. The tools are free under the NBA dropdown. It's super easy, man. It's just perfect tool to have. You don't have to go and compare them to sports books. And truth be told, listen, our projections are almost always going to be pretty much in line with what you're seeing at sports books. So you can cross-reference them, but that's going to give you a really good idea of what's on and what's off, especially since we have the odds. So appreciate you guys watching. Let's win some money tonight. Let's see some Stokastic avatars at the top of this contest. Make sure to follow Greg at G Ehrenberg DFS, me at Lafayette_D, and shout out to Mike Lawrence for producing this one. We'll see you back here for the next one on the No House Advantage Strategy Show.